Rising 300 meters from the surrounding jungle is a great monolith known as Black Mountain. The formation lies roughly 25 kilometers south of Cooktown in North Queensland, Australia. Whilst from a distance it bears the appearance of a regular mountain, Black Mountain is comprised of thousands of black granite boulders. The size of the rocks vary, with the largest being the size of a house. The boulders get their appearance from a species of algae which grows on their surface. The mountain is thought to have formed around 250 million years ago, when cooled subterranean magma formed the boulders and was subsequently exposed to the surface via erosion. Others believe that the formation was built by extraterrestrials, or even an advanced ancient civilization. Archaeologists have discovered hieroglyphs and pyramids along the Australian east coast, so perhaps these claims are not as baseless as one may imagine. During the warmer months, when the boulders heat in the sun, sometimes a sudden downpour can cause the rocks to contract. Over time, this process causes them to explode in a violent manner. Additionally, the hot air moving through underground passages and abysses creates eerie sounds. These unnatural noises have been described as sounding like moaning, screaming, crying, wailing, and a deep guttural hissing. A rotten stench also occasionally seeps from somewhere far below the surface. The imposing nature of the site is intimidating enough before one even considers its curious history. Indigenous Australians know the mountain as Kalkajaka, which translates to the place of the spear or mountain of death, a testament to the area's long association with conflict, bloodshed, and misfortune. Two Indigenous Australian tribes fought for control over the area in pre-colonial times, due to the region's bountiful food sources. The remains of the warriors who participated in these conflicts were interred inside the mountain's many passages and caves. To this day, local groups discourage adventurers from climbing Black Mountain, warning that such action will anger the spirits of their ancestors and cause the climbers to become physically ill. The ancients have contrasting stories for how the mountain was formed. One creation story is that there was a fight between two gigantic brothers who loved the same woman. The giants proceeded to make a pile of rocks to throw at each other to fight for her affection. The brothers ended up killing each other, only leaving the boulders behind as a testament to their folly. The other creation story is more eerie. Black Mountain supposedly formed when a cannibalistic shape-shifting witch doctor killed and consumed a young tribal chief. The cannibal was subsequently banished from the tribe. This despicable creature occasionally surfaced to hunt a human or two from his former tribe. The tribe became angered by his actions and subsequently formed a war party to find and execute him. The cannibal subsequently transformed into a goanna, which is a large native Australian lizard, to escape from the warriors. As he fled, he was struck by lightning, perhaps as penance from a greater power for his transgressions. The bolt caused the shapeshifter to explode into the mound of rocks that you can see today. This account sounds similar to the skinwalker folktales of North America. I think it's quite interesting that similar stories can be found across different cultures, separated by seas and technological limitations all around the world. But I digress. Back to Black Mountain. In modern times, the area has been called the Bermuda Triangle of North Queensland, due to the abundance of disappearances that have taken place within the mountain's sightless and twisted catacombs. There are documented reports of at least 10 people vanishing in the area around Black Mountain since the 1800s. I will read these disappearances for you now. In July of the year 1872, a courier named Philip Grainer went out searching for a stray calf at Black Mountain. He, his horse, and the calf were never seen again. In the early 1800s, a notorious criminal known as Sugarfoot Jack and his accomplices fled to Black Mountain following a shootout. They were never seen again, despite an exhaustive police search to locate them. In November of 1882, two cattlemen named Henry Owens and George Hawkins disappeared while looking for stray cattle around Black Mountain. One of the police trackers investigating their disappearance also disappeared. A second tracker returned, and was completely unhinged as a result of searching Black Mountain and was unable to provide a coherent report of what had occurred. In the year of 1890, Constable Jack Ryan tracked a fugitive to a cave inside of Black Mountain. He entered to see if the fugitive was hiding inside the cave system. According to those present, he never returned from that cave. In the year of 1892, a prospector named James Wren vanished while fossicking at Black Mountain. Circa 1920, two explorers determined to solve the mysterious disappearance of the mountain went missing themselves, along with some of the trackers who were dispatched to look for them. In 1928, Hugh Packer went missing while fossicking at Black Mountain. His body was later recovered next to his rifle with a bullet wound located in his head. In 1932, a traveler named Harry Page went missing while hiking on Black Mountain, and his body was later found. The coroners assessed that he had died from unknown causes. Most academics and historians pin the disappearances down to people falling into crevices between the boulders and becoming trapped within the mountain's underworld. Unlike most mountains, Black Mountain is somewhat porous. There is an extensive series of tunnels and catacombs beneath the rocks, with geologists unsure of how far and deep the networks extend. We can get a general idea of how extensive the tunnel systems are from the personal account of a bushman who briefly became lost in the sightless and impenetrable maze of granite that exists within the bowels of Black Mountain. I stepped into the opening. Like other Black Mountain caves, it dipped steeply downwards, narrowing as it went. Suddenly I found myself facing a solid wall of rock. But to the right there was a passageway just large enough for me to enter in a stooping position. I moved along it carefully for several yards. The floor was fairly level, the walls comprised of very smooth granite. The passage twisted and turned this way and that, always sloping deeper into the earth. Presently I began to feel uneasy. A huge bat beat its wings against me as it passed. However, I forced myself to move on, to push further. Soon my nostrils were filled with a sickly, musty stench. Then my torch went out. I was in total darkness. From somewhere that seemed the bowels of the earth, I could hear a faint moaning, which was then followed by the flapping of wings of thousands of bats. I began to panic as I groped and floundered back the way I thought I had come. My arms and legs were bleeding from bumps with unseen rocks. My outstretched hands clawed at space. I expected solid walls and floors, but I could not find it. At one stage where I had wandered into a side passage, I came to the brink of what was undoubtedly a precipice, judging by the echoes. The air was foul and I felt increased dizziness. Terrifying thoughts were racing through my mind about giant pythons I had seen at this mountain. As I crawled along, getting weaker and losing hope of ever coming out alive, I saw a tiny streak of light. It gave me super strength to worm my way towards a small cave mouth half a mile from the one I had entered. Reaching the open air, I gulped in lungfuls of it and fell down exhausted. I later found that I had been underground for 5 hours, most of the time on my hands and knees. A king's ransom would not induce me to enter those caves again. More outlandish theories which have been raised to explain the disappearances include the existence of a race of subterranean reptilian humanoids who dwell in an empire hidden within the bowels of the mountain. Their hunters are said to emerge during moments of opportunity to snatch away unsuspecting adventurers from the ledges of the boulders and are hauled away to meet some miserable fate. They are also said to be relatives of a British royal family. All jokes aside, tales of races of subterranean beings, like goblins or trolls of European folklore, are common around the world, so there is some historical basis for this explanation, even if it is grounded in myth. The mountain is also said to be populated by the Yowie, or for our non-Australian viewers, Bigfoot. If I'm being specific, which I might as well be, the official term for these creatures in this part of the country is Quinkin. Quinkin is an indigenous name for a collection of spirit creatures. Some are benevolent and helpful, whilst others are mischievous, and some, like the Taramali, are deadly. These people have many stories describing the existence of the Taramali, a large humanoid covered in dark to reddish-brown hair which preys on animals and humans alike. The area has been a hotspot for sightings, and is close to a collection of cave paintings depicting the Quinkin, located near the town of Laura, Queensland. The Queensland tiger has also been sighted at or around the mountain, and has been blamed for livestock mutilations by local graziers. There appear to be two iterations of this animal, depending on the recorded sighting. One is of a large, black, predatory cat, resembling a panther, which stalks the rainforest and hinterland regions. The other is of an animal that is reminiscent of what scientists believe the Phylacoleo carnifex, or marsupial lion, looked like, that being of a stockily built, tawny-coloured creature more resembling a hyena or lion than a panther. Mainstream academics agree that the Phylacoleo carnifex went extinct around 40,000 years ago. Academics also agree that there are areas within the North Queensland rainforest where modern men are yet to tread. The area is roughly the size of Montana, with a combined population of only around 280,000 people, most of whom are confined to a few cities along the coast. So I don't know. It's within the realm of possibility that creatures such as this may dwell within such a sparsely populated and remote region. An encounter with one of these cryptids may have been recorded in an account made by a cryptozoologist and explorer named Ivan McCurl and his son Danny. The Czech author and his son investigated Black Mountain in the early 2000s. This is what they experienced on the night they camped at Black Mountain. Around 10 o'clock, a strong wind picked up, and down from the treetops came a cracking sound. We crawled inside the tent, laying down on our mats, and stared at the dark fabric, straining to hear every possible sound. The nighttime cries of the primeval forest were frightening at first, full of odd wails mingled with horrific laughter and the occasional crunch of a broken-off branch by the wind. It was enough to make your soul shiver, but little by little we got used to it and began to fall asleep, when a sudden hush fell over everything. Not only did the wind cease, but the voices of animals and night birds were gone. The silence was deafening. Danny and I looked at each other in surprise. We began joking, saying that it must be the boogeyman, when we heard stone crumbling from the rock above us, as if something was slowly crawling out of the mountain. It sounded quite close, and we thought it might be an animal, perhaps a rock wallaby. But once it climbed all the way down, what we heard from the bushes and dried up leaves was the sound of human steps. A crawling animal would not sound like this. This was clearly a human walking. "Let's go see who it is," whispered Danny, reaching for a flashlight. "Wait," I stopped him. "I bet it's hard to see our black tent. Maybe he won't notice it and leave." To be honest, I was scared and didn't want to call any unnecessary attention to us. After all, we were foreigners in the wilderness, without a permit to build a tent by a holy site. By now the steps were definitely headed for us, as if someone knew very well where we were. Heart in my throat, I automatically gripped the handle of a long hunting knife. The prowling footsteps began to circle the tent. "Let's go for it," cried out Danny, unzipping the tent with a jerk. I jumped out after him, with a flashlight in one hand and a knife in the other. The oval reflections of our flashlights pierced through the spots from which the sounds had come. A formless dark mass, undulating by the grim wall of black bushes and trees, quickly dissipated. An ominous silence set in. True, no one was attacking us, but we heard no evidence of a person or animal escaping. All was still. We were completely baffled. Carefully, we searched all around our tent for possible traces and called into the dark forest, but to no avail. Dead silence was our only answer. We crawled back inside our tent, ready to run out again at the slightest provocation, but we no longer joked about demons. Life returned to the primeval forest, and so did its nighttime music, which we knew by now to be harmless. Even so, I couldn't fall asleep until dawn. My dreams were chaotic, full of fear before the evil powers emanating from the bowels of the Black Mountain, and full of images so vivid that I had a hard time separating them from reality. I was progressing down a long corridor, straight into the mountain's heart. I ended up in a square chamber, its floor strewn with curiously long skulls, with a blue and red checkerboard painted all over them. Ivan and Danny also attempted to reach the core of Black Mountain to determine whether it was indeed populated by a race of reptilians, or if it contained valuable treasures. In the following days, we returned several times. We tried our luck in different spots and soon realized that an intricate underground web of passages and pathways was underpinning the entire surface of the mountain. Thus, we were able to descend further down and explore many narrow stray paths. But in the end, Black Mountain was able to preserve its mystery. We never did find a way into its legendary heart. All the trails we embarked on were filled with gravel and sand from disintegrated stone. It would be hard to state unequivocally whether the heart harbors any mysterious chambers filled with tombs and treasures, or whether it is nothing but solid and untouched rock, as the geologists claim. To reach a conclusion would require a search lasting anywhere from weeks to several months. Yet the assumption that the mountain is either entirely or partially hollow seems reasonable. The locals once observed smoke from a burning bushfire drifting into the mountain on one side and coming out on the other. It has been rumored that Black Mountain contains electromagnetic properties. There have been accounts of compasses being affected by the mountain's granite boulders. Local pilots avoid flying near the mountain due to these unexplained anomalies, as well as strange air turbulence that is experienced within its vicinity. A 1991 aerial survey conducted to test for magnetic disturbances and radiation levels on the mountain turned up nothing unusual, but yet the reports of unexplained phenomena from pilots exists to this day. Boulder fields and mountains that produce magnetism does have a basis in science and history. Upon passing an island littered with granite boulders in 1770, Captain James Cook recorded that the island produced a magnetic effect on his ship's compass. The island was subsequently named Magnetic Island. This phenomena might be explained by the presence of magnetic minerals, such as magnetite, being present in the granite boulders. In fact, it was once thought that Earth's magnetism was caused by an enormous lodestone mountain at the North Pole, named Rupes Nigra, or Black Rock. It was believed that this magnetic monolith is what caused compasses to point north. Black Mountain is a unique location in Australia. It's a place that exists outside of mainstream consciousness. It is older than man and it hums of mystery. It's a place that I aspire to visit, and who knows, the Christmas holidays are approaching, and time permitting, I would love to go and check out the area, but then again, I wouldn't want to end up as the main course for a reptilian emperor. Time will tell, I guess. Anyway, I'm happy to have completed my first video of substance. I plan on creating more content like this, focusing on Australian phantasm and phantasmagoria. If you liked the video, please leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and thanks a lot for listening.